this is the Provoked Prawn, and this is the Blue Sona active dynamic broadcast microphone. This is an XLR microphone, and it's interesting for a number of different reasons. And in this video, I'm going to be unboxing and reviewing this microphone and talking to you about the highlights of it and why it might be interesting. Now, this is a reasonably expensive XLR microphone, but one that's aimed at basically dethroning the Shure SM7B as the king of dynamic XLR microphones. And it's built with a number of interesting technologies in it designed to deliver really good audio capture quality, especially for people like me doing voiceovers, streamers and content creators, because it has a Supercardioid pickup pattern, so it's designed to focus on your voice. But also it has a number of other things, including a built-in shock mount, a dual diaphragm mic capsule setup that's designed to eliminate a lot of background noise, and that's really powerful, and I'll show you that later on. And also to do all this without requiring quite as much gain as something like the Shure SM7B and other gain-hungry microphones. In the box you obviously get the microphone itself, which is worth noting is available in a couple of different colours. Obviously you can see the white one here. You also get one of them swappable windshields that you saw a tease of a second ago, and I'll show you again in a second, and a thread mount for mounting it on a boom arm. You will need a boom arm, you will need an XLR cable, and you will need an XLR interface, and I'll talk a bit more about what the options are later on and what you can use. But here you can see that you have the option to change the aesthetic of the microphone with relative ease, so this is an extra windshield included. I believe Blue is going to be selling some additional accessories in different colours at some point as well, so you should be able to swap it out for another one. I personally would like to see a blue one. I'm not a big fan of the red, but I like the standard aesthetic with the black windshield. If you pull that off, you'll also see underneath, you can see the microphone. That's that dual capsule setup. It's worth bearing in mind that you talk into the front, so the top of the microphone, and it's designed to eliminate a lot of the background noise behind it. So it has some clever technology in there with the dual capsule, but also Blue's clear amp technology to help eliminate a lot of surrounding noise. And that includes things like your keyboard, for example, and fan noise from your PC and other things. And I will say, as default, as I'll show you later on, it does eliminate a surprising amount of noise. I'm going to do a versus video to compare this with the Shure SM7B as well, just to talk about that and to show the quality differences between the two. You'll also see that it's movable, so you can turn it really easily on its yoke, so you can position it whatever way you want, up, down, and in various different positions. And I'll show you that as well on the boom arm in a little while. But essentially this means that you can set it up the way you want. Now on the rear, you'll see that there's a little cover with Logi written on it. I struggled to get this off, but actually what you've got to do is just push the plate in towards the bottom and it will pop off. Under there you have a bass cut and presence switch. Switch those and change the audio at hardware level, and that basically adjusts to either cut down on the bass or just boost your voice up a little bit, and it makes quite a big difference, and you'll see that later on. That's very similar to the Shure microphone. That has the same sort of switches on it. And then you have this included thread mount, which will allow you to mount it on various different boom arms. Obviously, it'll work with Blue's own boom arm, and I'd highly recommend the Blue Compass, because it is a fantastic mic arm that I've been using for a long time. But it's not the only one. It will mount with other ones, and I'll leave all the specs in the description so you can find out more about this microphone on paper, and also what it will mount with in terms of that. But there are other things of interest here. So obviously, fairly nice looking microphone out of the box. I really like the aesthetic and what they've got going on. It feels like a good solid build quality. Obviously the addition of extra windshields is a nice quirk, but more importantly it's that technology that's hidden inside and in the mic itself that's designed to deliver a really good quality. And I should say, I haven't already, I am using the microphone now for the voiceover for this video, and I will show you some tests of other things like the presence switches and also settings in Go XLR later on as well, so you can see what you can do to make it sound good. But straight out of the box it sounds really rich, depending on the interface you're using obviously, but it's designed to be plug and play and a bit more friendly than other microphones, and that has actually been my experience, is that there's a lot less fiddling to get it sounding nice than other XLR mics that I've tried, and that makes it a lot more user-friendly. However, it does still require an interface in order to power it, but it only requires 24 volts or 48 volts of phantom power, and you don't need a cloud lifter or other things, and that's one of the selling points that they say you don't need anything else to give it that extra boost, because it's designed to just cope with that. As long as you have that phantom power from your interface, which you should do with most modern interfaces, then it should be fine. A really nice aesthetic, really solid build quality, really good looking from multiple angles, and obviously that's a selling point too. Fairly unusual, quirky looking microphone, but also really good style to it. Obviously, you're paying a lot of money for this, but you are getting a premium look and really good sound, and obviously the potential for blocking out a lot of background noise. If you've been struggling with background noise, then this might well be the solution, because it basically eliminates a lot of that with relative ease. Also, it's highly adjustable, so you can use it on stream without worrying. But the other thing that's nice about it is it also has a shock mount system, so it has its own internal shock mount. Some of these things aren't immediately obvious. What it does do is eliminate quite a lot of background noise. If you're pulling the microphone around on a boom arm, for example, and I'll show you some of that in a minute, but basically it keeps that out as well. So I was really impressed with what it does in terms of delivering a nice, good quality sound, and at hardware level it's really easy to adjust too. Now obviously it doesn't come included with an XLR cable, so you will need an XLR cable, and you will also need an interface. Now, most people will probably turn to Go XLR Mini. There's also Wave XLR, and I've done the Razer audio mixer. I've done videos on all of these things that I'll link to in the description. These are various different interfaces. You just need to make sure that it's able to supply 24 volts or 48 volts of phantom power. That's extra power designed to power this microphone, and both of these devices will do that as a standard. The Wave XLR from Elgato is a really easy interface because it basically only requires 2 cables. As default, it's really easy to set up, and it also has some power within the software that allows you to customize audio in various different ways, routing audio in from different sources. I'm not going to go into that depth right now, but basically a simple interface and reasonably affordable too. And then you need an XLR cable and obviously the USB connection to your PC. And then it's basically set up like that. But this is an additional purchase, and you will need to choose which one you're going to use and what the setup will be there. Obviously, you've spent a lot of money on your microphone. You also need a boom arm, XLR cable, and XLR interface. So it's not exactly cheap. Once you get into all those different things, you're looking at quite a few £100 or dollars, depending on where you're from. And obviously that's going to add up to quite a bit of money over time. The Go XLR is another solid interface, and that's the one that many people will turn to. You've got hardware level sliders for various different audio channels, and you can set up, if you're streaming, this isn't a perfect interface for that because you can basically adjust between various different channels of audio and tweak it on the fly. It also has some good settings for noise gate and compressor and other things like that. And with the Shure SM7B, you had to do a lot of fiddling to get it sounding good. But actually what I'm going to show you in a little while in the software is it's really easy to get this mic sounding good with the Go XLR with very minimal tweaking. And I really found that I didn't have to mess about with the compressor and noise gate settings anywhere near as much as I did with the Shure SM7B, or indeed other microphones that I've tried, in order to get it sounding this good, as rich as it does now. Now the microphone obviously needs to be mounted on a boom arm because it doesn't come with a stand of any sort, and you do want to get it on a boom arm, and you still do want to get it close to your mouth because again, getting that gain down will help eliminate some of that background noise as well, and just get it sounding richer. With any of the dynamic XLR microphones, the closer you get to it, the better it sounds. If you get too close, you obviously suffer from mouth noise and wind, but what you will find is that it does become a lot richer, and I'll show you that again in a second. But the thread mounting system in the box means that it will mount on a variety of boom arms. Just for some variety, I'm using the Rode PSA 1 Plus here. As I said earlier, it will work with the Blue Compass, and I'd recommend that microphone arm as well. But the reason I wanted to do it on the Rode one is actually this does suffer with some shock problems usually because it's quite a thin sort of boom arm. It's a good quality one, but sometimes when you bosh it, it does let the metal sounds through into the mic. Because this has got a shock mount system in it, actually does a good job of eliminating that. And I'll show you what I mean in a second. But that's fantastic in that way. Now, what you will see, I'm just going to show you, is it's possible to adjust the microphone in various different ways. So obviously put it on at the top, facing that direction, but you can swivel it around that way. Obviously, you can also turn it on the mic arm that you've got it on as well, so the boom arm, adjust and tighten it as necessary, push it into a different position. What you need to do, obviously, is to get it to face you so that you can talk into it. So you've got to talk into the top, and as long as you can do that, then that's fine. But I've got it upwards. In a minute, you'll see it downwards. So you can basically customize the position with relative ease. Take that XLR cable out, swivel it round. Good quality stand there and really easy to adjust. You just spin that dial on one side and then you can flick it about with ease. And here you can see the Blue Sona on the Rode PSA 1 Plus. And this is the position you'd want to get it in. So talking into the microphone, obviously the closer you get, the richer it sounds. You can see the difference there. And also you can see that we have the back here, and that's one of the points of interest because you can pop that off. So basically push it in on one side and get access to it, and then you have access to these switches. So you can see the bass cut is on this side, so if I keep talking and then turn that, you'll see the difference. So basically switching between that being on and being off, and it makes some difference to the amount of bass going into there. It's a little bit fiddly to do. You wouldn't be doing this on the fly anyway. You'll set it up and choose which one, and then the presence adjustment switch as well. So you can see that takes out quite a lot of the presence of it. I think it sounds richer with it set up like this. That sounds a little bit nicer for my voice personally. Obviously go down to your personal preference, but this little thing is held on with magnets, so it just clicks back on and sort of adds to the overall aesthetic. And obviously you have that Logitech set up there. You'll also see that it can see how I've got it adjusted so it's actually downwards now. Before on the mic arm I had it upwards. The other thing that I want to demonstrate is usually with Rode PSA 1 Plus, a lot of the noise travels through from this arm, and you can hear some of it, but actually it eliminates a lot of it unless I'm talking and bashing it at the same time. But that's partly down to the GoXLR software, although I've actually got the noise gate turned down quite a bit, and I'll show you what I mean there in a minute. But basically it means that you can manipulate this mic around. You can see that you can grab it quite a bit and pull it about quite a bit as well, and it doesn't pick any of that up, and that's really impressive. It's really good quality in terms of what it's doing for eliminating that noise as well. Other thing I wanted to demonstrate, and again this is partly down to the noise gate settings in the GoXLR software, but I have at the moment the Roccat Vulcan Mini here. This is the Roccat Vulcan Mini keyboard, and it's quite a loud keyboard. So what I wanted to demonstrate is if I type on this keyboard in relative proximity to the microphone, it actually eliminates quite a lot of that noise. And then what I can do is I can actually turn up the noise gate a little bit more. So we've just turned that up now. Now you can't really hear the keyboard unless I'm talking at the same time. I'm obviously mashing it excessively to just sort of demonstrate that, but what I found was with the noise gate settings in the right place, it eliminates quite a lot of that as standard, unless you happen to be talking as well. But the fact obviously that was right near the microphone, I have it on the desk and I'm doing it, it's a bit of a different story. You don't hear quite so much. Now that is quite an excessively loud keyboard, and I am mashing it a bit harder to sort of emphasize it. But I was struck by just how good this mic is at eliminating that with the support of the software. Obviously, depends on the interface you're using, but I didn't find that I had to use the noise gate settings that high in order to make that adjustment. So it is actually quite remarkable what it can do and what it delivers there as well. And I'm going to go into the settings now on that because I want to show you what I was talking about, how it's sort of plug and play. It's not plug and play, but it's a lot easier to set up than the Shure microphone. So I've got the Shure SM7B over here, which I'll give a demo comparison of in a minute. But this microphone is much easier because that one requires a lot more effort in order to tweak and get settings right. Whereas I just found I plug this into the GoXLR, go to the default settings, tweak them around a little bit, and then basically you've got the sounds that you're hearing now. So what I want to demonstrate now is the GoXLR settings that I have set up. Now you can see in the various different settings here at the bottom, I don't have anything applied to the equalizer, so it's all set to 0. This is just how it sounds with those couple of hardware level switches. So that's how rich it sounds out of the box, which is an impressively rich sound. Obviously I could crank it up a bit more, although my voice has probably got enough bass as is. It probably doesn't need any extra, but if you wanted to play around with these, you could make quite a bit of difference to it. So we could do this, maybe we can add some mid, probably a bit more treble. Maybe we'll take some of that out and then you can see you can make some adjustment to it. I'm going to leave them all at 0 for the moment though, because they're probably not necessary. I like it like this. Well, one of the things that's interesting is the noise gate's currently set to 40, which is pretty low. And I barely have done anything else to it either. I didn't mess around with the compressor at all. It's currently set to 0. And one of the ways I want to demonstrate this is what you can do with basically setting up a default profile. So I'll show you that in a second. The mic setup, basically goes about basically clicking on this and then setting it up. So I'm just going to show you the steps for that, but it will cut off the microphone while I do it. But what I'm going to do is basically create a new profile to show the default settings. We're going to start with those and then tweak it so we're basically getting it sounding right. So what I'm going to do now is create a default profile. I'm going to click on here and it'll set it back to default settings. So what I found is that you need roughly around 40-ish decibels of gain with 48 volts of phantom power. And this is obviously going to vary depending on how you talk. If you're really loud or really quiet, then you'll need to adjust this, and also how far you've got it away from your mouth. So if I put it back a bit further, I might need to crank up the gain, for example. Basically, you just need to talk so it goes into these levels, and basically the loudest that you'll talk, so talk at the loudest possible level that you would talk at if you're playing with your friends and you get overexcited, for example, and check that it doesn't go too far into this loud level. So I found somewhere around 44 is okay for me. So that's that. What you'll see now is this is the default settings. Again, equalizer set to nothing, compressors set at 0, and the noise gate set to 50. And that is it. I mean, basically, you could use it like this with relative satisfaction. Now, I will say that I did turn the noise gate down because what I can hear is there's a little bit of clipping where essentially the noise gate's trying to eliminate some noise, and some of that noise is actually just me talking. There are two options there. I could turn the gain up or I can turn the noise gate down. Again, this is going to vary depending on your situation, but I find that I have a big problem with traffic noise from outside my house and also fan noise from my PC. If you have an excessively noisy keyboard, you might want to play around with this and the compressor settings a bit more. I'm not going to dive into the settings and what you would do with the Go XLR at this moment. I might do a separate video on that, so let me know in the comments if you're interested. The point was, what I'd demonstrate is just how easy it is to set up. I've basically clicked two buttons. I've set the gain level, I've put the noise gate down a bit, and now I've got it sounding the way I want it to. Really simple. Doing something like the Shure SM7B is nowhere near as easy. Yeah, so it's remarkable. And now I'm using the Blue Sona with the Rodecaster Pro 2. This is a more expensive interface, but it delivers really good sound and good customization. I didn't want to focus on this for most of the video because most people will probably use the Go XLR as a starting point, but this is a very nice interface. I also found that if I plug this in and set it to dynamic microphone, you can set the gain a little bit lower, so it's around 36 decibels at the moment. I also have the noise gate turned off, so there is a little bit of white noise in the background, but what I wanted to demonstrate is just how good it is at eliminating sound. So I've obviously got my PC on nearby, and it's eliminating some of that background noise anyway. And obviously you can go in and turn the noise gate on and then eliminate a lot of the noise, as I showed you with the Go XLR. So you can do things like that to add an extra layer of it. But even as standard, it sounds good, and you can turn the gain down and get closer to it and make it sound really rich. The other reason I wanted to do this was to be able to demonstrate the difference between this microphone and the Shure SM7B. So this is currently muted at the moment, but I do have this one on. So what I'm going to do now is unmute the Shure and mute the Blue Sona. So this is now the Shure SM7B, and this is how I'd have it set up as default on my usual sound settings so that you can hear the quality of the sound there. And the Shure is great at eliminating a lot of background noise and getting it sounding really rich with a few tweaks. And as you can see, you can also pull it around quite a bit in the same sort of way. It has very little problems there, but it also sounds really good too, as does the Blue Sona, which, as you can hear, sounds really rich, really warm, and has a great sound. So you can see they're very comparable, and they should be because the price is very similar. Hopefully this has been a good look at both microphones. If you want to see a more in-depth comparison on that, stick with me, subscribe if you haven't already. A big shout out to all my YouTube members, and thanks very much for watching this video. If you found it useful, hit that like button, drop me a comment, it will really help support the channel. Thanks very much for watching. This has been the Provoked Prawn. Hope you found this video useful, interesting, hilarious, or otherwise. Take a look at these other videos that I think you might find interesting as well. And have a look at the description for links and other information you might find useful. Click that join button to see the benefits of being a member of my YouTube channel. And most importantly, have a great life.